Hello, this is Michelle Clary, Senior Wealth Advisor and founder of Piton Wealth. And I'm here today to share some of the basic tenets we have pulled together with the financial planning objectives we have for our clients who are physicians. There are unique needs, and we have recognized that over the last 2 decades of working with our physician clients. And so we're hoping to share some of those observations and recommendations and philosophies with you today. First, we have some disclosure slides. Piton Wealth is a part of the Thrivent Advisor Network. We do not provide legal advice or tax advice. We're not CPAs or attorneys. However, we do coordinate with those professionals in order to seek the best placement and guidance for your estate planning and tax planning needs. Uh, we are going to provide some of our opinions based on our years of experience, but they are opinions and not necessarily factual, somewhat historical based, but not certain forecasts into the future. And so I'm going to start off with a general description of why planning for physicians is more complicated than many other professions. And I'm going to do that with a series of drawings. And if I was in person with you, this would be a flip chart. And so I'm not an artist. In addition to not being an attorney or a CPA. However, I'm going to do my best to walk you through this explanation. And so really, I'm going to contrast planning with physicians first with a much more straightforward planning scenario. And I'm going to tell you a story of a wonderful young engineer client of ours. And when this young lady graduated from college, I vividly remember going on a walk down the river path in the Tri-Cities with her. And I said, the most important thing that you can do when you start off from a financial perspective is live under your means, maintain a solid and intentional budget, put 10% into your 401k, max out the Roth IRA every year, and you won't have a financial concern in the future. You'll be very well prepared for retirement. And the purpose of this is mostly that when you start at a very young age with diligent saving, it is almost certain, assuming a reasonable rate of return, let's just say 7 or 8% per year, that you're going to accumulate enough at the age of a normal retiree, say 65, in order to be able to fund cash flow needs and have a sustainable replacement ratio that will last the rest of that person's life. Again, there's circumstances that would prevent this that are out of our control, but historically, this would work out very nicely. One of the challenges with a physician and their financial planning needs is that at age 22, they are still going through some very, very important and critical training and education. And so they may actually be in a scenario where they don't start to earn enough to be able to save, and let's just say that this is a fairly ideal situation where this medical student is able to come out of medical school with no debt, and even that is very, very difficult to do. But at age 32, that's when there is a very impressive income that's earned, and certainly the means to start saving significantly for retirement. But you'll notice that there is a 10-year difference here between the example that I gave you in the upper left-hand corner and the example that I'm laying in front of you with a physician. When physicians start, there's often, let's just say that this starts off with a $200,000 salary, and I recognize there's lots of different scenarios where this starting salary would be different, perhaps higher or lower. But often with physicians, there's more of a staggered, there may be a fairly stable income for a period of time, and then there may be higher incomes, but it's more of a stepping stool or a stair step rather than a linear increase that happens in other occupations in many cases. And so increases could look like this. Well, then 65, let's go back to the end game. So this is a traditional retirement age. The other thing that often happens with physicians is in such a high-paced, fast-paced, high-stress job, there's often the desire and sometimes the need for physicians to start to cut back at an age earlier than 65. And so let's just say that peak earning years happen here, and then there may be a need to start to cut back a little bit. Um, and this causes another significant concern for the endeavor of seeking to save enough at retirement age that will then last the rest of that professional's life. And so what are some of those other underlying challenges? Well, in these peak earning years, it's more difficult for a high income earner to put away enough money. In this scenario, in many cases, if 10% of salary plus employer matches is put away into a 401k, it becomes very simple. It just takes care of itself. There's no disciplined decisions that need to be made in order to accomplish that. Let's just say that in these high income earning years, the income might be 500,000. Well, 500,000, 10% of 500,000 is significantly more than the maximum 401k deferral for an individual. And so it's more difficult. It takes more effort for this individual to save enough for retirement because it's not nearly as cut and dry. It's not checking a box and just letting that happen every pay period. Additionally, the income, especially in these peak earning years, is significantly over the limit at which Roth contributions can be made. And so that eliminates another very attractive way to save for retirement. If there is a period of time where this physician is technically self-employed, which is happening often in the medical community, there wouldn't be an employer-sponsored retirement account, and that individual would need to establish a different means of saving, maybe a SEP IRA. But there again, this takes effort and time, and those are things that physicians often don't have. Additionally, on this side of the equation, many people are able to collect a very sizable Social Security benefit that replaces a fairly high percentage of their income. But the way the Social Security program is calculated and the way contributions work is right now the Social Security wage base is somewhere around $150,000, let's call it for round numbers. So if this physician is earning 500,000, they're only making Social Security contributions on the first 150 or so. And so the exact calculation for how Social Security is equated, I won't get into those details, but what ends up happening is there's a much lower replacement ratio that Social Security provides to the overall income stream because of the high income that's earned. And again, it's not to say that there isn't very positive, very effective things that physicians can do with their high income, but it's simply saying that it's harder to do that because it requires a lot more effort and discipline. All the while, there's additional pressures of lifestyle. A client of mine, a scientist, was joking with me the other day that one of the benefits of the scientist career path is when you start to practice as a scientist, you are virtually expected to wear jeans and a sweatshirt to work every day. Physicians tend to dress much nicer. There's perhaps just the social pressure to drive nicer cars, live in a nicer house, all of these things. It adds to the burden of challenge in order to save enough to retire with a replacement ratio that's adequate. One other thing that I've observed through the years is physicians also tend to have children that seek very expensive and impressive education, and those things also have costs. So everything in aggregate certainly does present significant challenges for the physician community and the clients with whom we work. And we have developed financial planning strategies that help to make the most optimal of the situation for the purpose of our clients. So moving forward, I think everybody has probably seen enough of my drawings. Here is a list of the ways that Piton Wealth helps physicians in their financial planning endeavors. And so this list in other terms is simply how do physicians benefit from a relationship with Piton Wealth. Number one, Piton Wealth advisors know to have a heightened focus during physicians' high earning years. And so it's so important. I counsel our physician clients as they're working into those high income years to develop discipline, to be sure that the tools are set up to enable as much of funding that can be automated as possible in order to make it simple to save, and for those decisions to be as automated as possible is one of the bottom lines. But it does require planning in order to have those tools, those accounts created in order for those savings to happen. Otherwise, it's very, very easy for any human being to otherwise spend that money rather than save it. So we're in tune with the need to be prepared with all of those different accounts and savings vehicles. Number two, Piton's formal planning process provides a reliable structure and form for long-term financial planning and stability. I will go through this formal financial planning process a little bit later in the presentation, but effectively, in order for there to be commitment to a plan, it's important that it starts with understanding our client and understanding what the client is uniquely trying to accomplish so that we can help them make decisions that leads them to the goal that they're seeking. And so we have a patented trademark process that helps us to guide our clients through this structure. And what we found is that when we can encourage busy professionals to dedicate some time at the beginning to investing in the process so that they have confidence in the sacrifices that they're making, it makes a tremendous difference. Number three, the Piton team is experienced with providing comprehensive financial planning for highly educated and experienced professionals. We've been doing this, as I mentioned before, for 25 years. I will state as well that it is also, I think, helping the effectiveness of us advising and guiding professionals, because at Piton Wealth, we also have a very intense dedication toward highly experienced and educated financial advisors. We are a firm that does not call a person an advisor after taking, a test for which they study, maybe 3 months. That is fairly common in the industry and would be terrifying in the line of work that physicians are in, obviously. And so it should be absolutely expected that other professionals that physicians work with would also have a standard of education and experience that's comparable to their field. And in the Piton Wealth system, we require 5 years of experience working under a experienced financial advisor and the successful completion of the certified financial planning exam. That is the bare minimum required in order to be an advisor at Piton. And it's kind of like somewhat akin to going through residency. So I do think it's important to point that out, because we live the same life in many ways. And we do have significant experience with working with highly educated and experienced professionals. Number four, physicians' complex lives deserve simplification from experienced professionals. And so there again, there's so many things in the lives of a physician that are complicated. They're emotionally draining. They provide such tremendous value to our society. And I strongly believe that where opportunities exist for professionals to offload areas of complexity and time suck and emotional drain, it's very important that they take advantage of that. And our system does provide for that to happen. Number five, years of accumulated assets often benefit from diligent pursuit of organization. So especially where there's perhaps different hospitals, perhaps different employment structures over the course of years, you can find yourself in a position where there may be multiple accounts, maybe none of which are tremendously large, but it becomes overwhelming. And when separated and disorganized, it may feel like it's not a lot, and perhaps there's simply not enough time to monitor all of the different accounts adequately. But what's amazing is when a formal process is pursued and there is an effort to consolidate those assets, it's amazing to me how many times it actually does add up to a pretty significant amount. And once gathered and organized, there can be a much more intentional, much more effective effort toward monitoring, managing, and making sure that those accounts are structured to not only perform, but also simply be set up in a structure that allows for regular contributions, as I mentioned before, that has beneficiary designation set up properly, coordinates with estate planning documents, and a myriad of other complexities. Number six, asset protection from a risk perspective, both volatility of principal and liability is a priority, especially in complex situations. And so what we're addressing here is the reality that investing does involve risk, and the profession, any professional profession, but certainly the profession of a physician, also involves significant liability risk. And so it's important that both are understood and both are addressed with regards to ways that those areas can be made a little bit more pronounced, and there's a little bit more attention provided to those needs. Number seven, and the final point that I'll make here, is financial plans incorporate guardrails around high dollar impact decision making. So again, I think looking back through the history we have at Piton working with physicians, obviously very intelligent people, but worked very hard, right? Emotionally draining fields. And one of the observations that we've had is there's maybe a little bit more willingness to take risk. And also there is, maybe because of lack of time, we do tend to see physicians getting themselves caught up in either an investment strategy or a product that maybe is ill-placed, or even private placement investments that just have such tremendous risk that isn't really explained, that's taking too much of a percentage of that physician's investment dollars. And so it is very, very helpful in our observation to have the partnership of a financial advising team that can help physicians make decisions that are mindful of the risk involved, and can help to understand the details involved in a product they might be buying, so there isn't poor placement that's regretted down the road. Defining the parameters for success. So there's a lot of different, again, advantages of a comprehensive financial planning program, risk management, understanding retirement age objectives, making sure there's enough retirement income, addressing cost of living, and inflationary concerns, understanding asset type and whether there's advantage in current or future taxation exposure, longevity concerns, how long is this couple going to live? Are they assisting with parents that are aging? And in many cases, again, it goes with the caring nature of what makes a person want to become a physician in the first place. They tend to have more inclination to become very involved in caring for aging parents, and assisting and supporting their adult children perhaps longer than other people would. Behavioral habits, retirement hobbies, and legacy goals. So our formal process is called the Navigated Journey, and we trademarked this formal process about 15 years ago. There are 4 stages of this process, and as I mentioned, this is what the process that we go through in order to ensure that we're starting off with a foundation of understanding our clients incredibly well, and our clients going through this process so that they are clear on what they're seeking to accomplish as well. And what we found is that when the process is followed at the beginning, it can make so much more uh, enjoyable and so much more successful the financial process for the rest of that person's life. And so the Discover process is simply where we gather all of the relevant documents, including investment statements, including tax returns, estate planning documents, and a myriad of other investment data. We gather that information and we compile it so that we can sit down with the client in this Discover meeting, validate the information, do some due diligence to see if are we missing anything, are we misinterpreting anything. And we also at this meeting ask questions of values so that we understand what it is that the client is uniquely trying to accomplish, and really a little bit more about the heart of the person that we're working with. We then proceed to the design meeting, which is where we provide recommendations based on what we have learned in the preparation for and the execution of the first meeting, the Discover meeting. So in this design meeting, we provide written, formal, bespoke recommendations for how the client could accomplish the things that they have shared that they're trying to accomplish. And so we effectively create a map, and we give recommendations, many of which are implemented immediately, and several of which just lay out a roadmap for decisions that will be faced in the future, such as how to collect Social Security as an example. And we pursue the preparation for being ready to not only optimize the eventuality of those decisions, but also to make the best decision when the time comes down the road. We next proceed to what we call the Realize meeting, which is where after receiving the recommendations and hearing it from us and asking questions during the design meeting, but then taking the book home and thinking about it and looking at the different data points and recommendations, the client comes back for the Realize meeting, which is where we assist them with taking action on whatever recommendations they'd like to move forward with now. And then we talk about laying out a path for accomplishing the other steps down the road when the time presents itself. And then the Achieve meeting is the annual update to this process. It's less time consuming, and also really just keeping things up to date. Our lives are not static. Our lives are very dynamic. The markets are not static. The markets are very dynamic. Regulation is dynamic, tax planning is dynamic. And so it's incumbent upon us to go through a regular process of updating the information so that we can make sure that both where your lives are progressing to and how the regulatory market and tax planning structure is changing, is continuing to be optimized for the benefit of our clients. So every year we go through a mini version of this formal process to just make sure that we're still on track. And always there's a few tweaks based on things that have changed either in our clients' lives or in the markets and the regulation. So again, so many different elements of financial planning that we dive into. Some of those most common boxes, elements of financial planning are listed here. And I will say there's so much more. You know, the relationship and the value prop that we provide varies significantly based on the need of the client, the unique need of the client. And so much of what we do is to figure out what is needed and how can we help to maximize the opportunity that presents itself or the challenge that presents itself with our clients. But these are certainly some of the basic tenets of financial planning, and certainly with physicians, many of these things do apply. And so I'm going to close. And first of all, I'm just going to thank our medical community. You know, it is a very, very admirable profession. You know, we are so dependent on those that have dedicated their lives to caring for our health and our well-being. I recognize you know, have many friends that are physicians, so many Piton clients that again just provide such tremendous support for our society and certainly our communities. We are so grateful for that, and in part, that's the reason why we are working very hard to continue to dedicate ourselves to supporting you from a financial planning perspective. So please, if this is something that you are interested in talking to us more about, you can schedule an appointment, an introductory appointment at either of the offices in the Tri-Cities or Kalispell, recognizing that we do also very effectively work with remote relationships. And we can hold meetings via Microsoft Teams as well as in either of the offices in Kennewick or Kalispell. So thank you so much for your time today, and we will hopefully hear from you soon. Thank you.